After getting drunk, I went to my childhood friend's place to crash for the night. After entering the wrong password for the third time, bullet comments suddenly flooded in front of me. Stop wasting your effort. Female supporting role. The password was already changed by the female lead. The male and female leads are busy getting very intimate inside. They don't have time to deal with Jessica at all. LMAO. There's a gloomy villain peeking through the peephole across the hall for quite a while now. Hasn't he always had a crush on the female supporting role? Honestly, the female supporting role might as well pair up with him. Christopher's face is seriously top tier, and rumor has it his size is an astonishing 20. The alcohol rushed to my head, and I actually pressed the doorbell of the apartment across the hall. The door swung open instantly, revealing a handsome face. The man stared at me, his Adam's apple bobbing hard. Chapter 1. Christopher was wearing a black bathrobe, the collar hanging low. It exposed a large expanse of pale, cool-toned skin and sharply defined collarbones. His hair was half wet, droplets of water sliding along his jawline and disappearing into the depths of his robe. I subconsciously swallowed. My gaze drifted downward uncontrollably. The bullet comments immediately turned suggestive. Jessica actually went to Christopher. But where is this little perv looking? This villain's face is such a visual treat. Female supporting role. Go for it. Pin him down. Mess him up. Ruin him. Is it really 20? We need confirmation. Christopher lowered his eyelids, looking down at me from above. His gaze was dark and brooding, like he could devour someone whole. Need something? His voice was hoarse, still carrying the heat from just having showered. I hiccuped drunkenly and pointed toward the opposite door. Passwords changed. Can't get in. His Adam's apple shifted again. That small mole on it moved up and down with the motion, ridiculously attractive. So? He let out a cold laugh. You came to me for shelter? Why not? I stepped forward. The tip of my nose nearly bumped into his chest. Maybe it was the alcohol, but my courage had grown unusually bold. After all, in the past, I hardly even dared to speak to Christopher. I had known him since high school. His family and Jeremy's family were old friends, and the two of them were close as well. Back then, Christopher always sat in the last row of the classroom. He slept during lessons, fought fiercely, and never buttoned his shirt all the way up. The way he looked at people was too heavy, like a beast lurking in the shadows. I always took a detour whenever I saw him. So when the bullet comments called him a villain, I didn't find it strange at all. Christopher lowered his head slightly, narrowing his eyes. A dangerous glint flashed in their depths. He raised a hand to the doorframe, blocking my path. Leaning forward, his presence became overwhelmingly oppressive. I'm the kind of bastard who would make a move on his best friend's woman. Jessica, think carefully. The bullet comments floated by. He's fishing, Jessica. Hurry up and take the bait. Don't be fooled by Christopher acting calm. His hands are shaking. I lowered my head to look. Sure enough, the hand he had braced against the doorframe had veins bulging, his fingertips trembling slightly, as if he was holding something back. That discovery made me feel inexplicably excited. I reached out, my fingertips lightly hooking onto the belt of his bathrobe. I've thought it through. I tilted my head up and smiled at him. The corners of my eyes probably flushed red from the alcohol. Christopher, let me in. The air froze for a few seconds. He suddenly shut his eyes tightly. A low curse forced out from his throat. The next second, my wrist was grabbed by a scorching hot hand. The world spun, and I was dragged inside, just before my back could slam into the cabinet in the entryway. He blocked it for me, with a loud bang. The door slammed shut behind us. Chapter 2. Christopher's presence pressed down on me from all sides. It carried a sharp cedar scent, mixed with a faint trace of tobacco. He leaned in, his knee forcefully pushing between my legs. Nothing like the distant, restrained ice prince he usually appeared to be. More like a starving wolf. Jessica, since when did you get so bold? He lowered his head, the tip of his nose brushing against my ear. You think you can handle the consequences of provoking me? My head spun badly. All I could feel was the scorching heat radiating from him. The bullet comments went wild. Holy shit! Is this really something I'm allowed to watch? Kiss her! Kiss her! This villain pairing is so addictive. He never confessed his feelings even until death in the original story. Mom, my dream just came true. I let out a hazy hum, reaching up to touch his face. Let me check the goods. See if you're really that impressive. Christopher let out a scoff. There was a hint of madness in that laugh. His large hand gripped my waist, pulling me closer. You're the one who walked right into this. The kiss came down, fierce and urgent, carrying a punishing edge. My lips were knocked open by his teeth, a metallic taste spreading through my mouth. I frowned from the pain, but he only kissed me deeper. In the haze of desire, I heard him grind out the words by my ear. Jessica, say my name. Don't get it wrong. Chapter 3. Christopher. The moment I spoke, the man suddenly turned his head. The corners of his eyes flushed red in a frightening way. His fingers brushed past me, trembling as he reached to untie the belt of his robe. But before I could even take in the sight of his toned body, my stomach suddenly churned violently. Ugh! The charged atmosphere shattered instantly. I shoved the frozen Christopher away, clamping a hand over my mouth as I rushed into the bathroom. Clutching the toilet, I vomited uncontrollably. Steady footsteps came from behind. Christopher appeared with a glass of water and a towel, his face dark as thunder, yet he still knelt down on one knee, gently patting my back again and again. Jessica, you're really something. He let out a cold snort, though his movements remained careful and gentle. After I emptied my stomach, he made me drink honey water, and I collapsed onto the bed in a daze. As my consciousness blurred, an emptiness spread through my chest. I suddenly thought of that night. Chapter 4. In my sophomore year, I was followed by a creep. I ran all the way to Jeremy's apartment building, my fingers shaking so badly I couldn't press the floor button properly. He came down in his pajamas to pick me up, pulling me into his arms. Don't be scared. He stroked my hair. The password is your birthday. I'll never change it. You can come anytime. That night, I slept in his bedroom while he took the floor. In the middle of the night, I had a nightmare and woke up crying. He climbed onto the bed and held me, gently patting my back over and over. Jessica, I'll always be here. Moonlight fell across his face, soft like an illusion. Later, he fell asleep, his arms still wrapped around me. I secretly kissed the corner of his lips. I thought that was the beginning of love. But later, because of a debate competition, he met Alicia. They could talk about anything, and the balance in Jeremy's heart slowly began to tilt. He started forgetting my birthday, started breaking promises, changing the password, started saying, Jessica, Alicia needs me more. I squeezed my eyes shut, frowning tightly as tears streamed down, muttering under my breath, Jeremy, liar. The arm around me suddenly tightened, squeezing painfully. Chapter 5. When I woke up again, it was the next morning. The sunlight was blinding. I pushed myself up from the bed, my head pounding as if it were splitting apart. Looking down, I realized I was wearing a man's shirt, loose and empty on my body. There were several obvious red marks on my collarbone. My mind buzzed. The bullet comments appeared again, this time carrying a hint of schadenfreude. Congrats. Female supporting role, even though it didn't go all the way last night. The villain definitely took very thorough care of you inside and out. Someone like Christopher, a complete lunatic, once you provoke him. You think you can just run away? I jolted in fright, grabbed my clothes, and rushed into the bathroom like a guilty thief. After quickly cleaning myself up, I cautiously opened the door, and just my luck, the door across the hall opened at the same time. Jeremy stood there in a hoodie and sweatpants, holding breakfast in his hand. Behind him, Alicia, in a nightgown, peeked out with her fluffy hair. Their eyes met mine. Jeremy's smile froze instantly. His gaze swept over my messy hair and the oversized men's shirt, his pupils shrinking sharply. Jessica? His voice rose. Why are you at Christopher's place? Alicia covered her mouth, looking at me in shock. Jessica, you too. Her gaze drifted downward, her expression turning suggestive, as if I had done something shameful. What's with all the noise so early? Christopher walked out from behind me. He was still wearing the black bathrobe from last night, leaning lazily against the doorframe, holding 2 cups of coffee. He casually handed one to me. Then he lifted his eyes and glanced at Jeremy indifferently. Whose place she's at? What the hell does that have to do with you? Chapter 6. Jeremy's face turned ashen as he rushed forward, trying to grab my hand. Jessica, are you out of your mind? Just because I didn't pick up your call last night? So out of spite, you go after my best friend too? I stepped back, avoiding his hand. My eyes fell on a dark red hickey on his neck. All I felt was irony. Jeremy. I looked at him coldly. Last night, I couldn't get your password right. Jeremy froze for a moment, his gaze shifting uneasily. It was Alicia's birthday last night. We were just messing around and changed it. I forgot to tell you. He tried to explain, his tone softening. Jessica, stop making a scene. Come home with me. You reek of alcohol. What is this supposed to look like? Which home? I let out a mocking laugh. Your place? Or the place you share with Alicia? Jessica. Jeremy grew irritated. Can you stop being unreasonable? Alicia is just staying over. She's afraid of the dark. So heh. A cold chuckle came from behind me. Christopher looked at Jeremy, amusement flickering in his eyes. Jeremy, who do you think you're fooling? He bent down, leaning close to my ear. The gesture was intimate, his breath brushing against my ear, sending a shiver down my spine. Did you sleep well last night? You were kicking the blanket later. Jeremy's face instantly darkened like a storm. The bullet comments flooded again. The villain's performance gets full marks from me. Ha ha ha. Jeremy's face turned green. This is probably the first time he's seen Christopher snap back at him like this. Drama showdown. Love it. More please. I had no intention of getting entangled with them. I turned and walked toward the elevator. Jeremy tried to follow, but Alicia grabbed him. Jeremy, I'm so hungry. Let's eat first, okay? Jeremy hesitated for a moment, then let himself be pulled back inside. Before the elevator doors closed, I caught a glimpse of Christopher's teasing smile. Chapter 7. A few days later, Jeremy organized a gathering. He said it was to officially introduce Alicia to friends in their social circle, and that I had to be there. Jessica, you're like a younger sister. If you're not there for this kind of occasion, people will start getting the wrong idea. That's what he said on WeChat. If it were before, I would have felt hurt. I would have obeyed. But now, looking at the bullet comments spoiling things like a setup trap and Alicia plans to humiliate the female supporting role in public, I simply replied with a sure. Who humiliates who? That's still up for debate. The private room was thick with smoke and noise. Jeremy sat in the main seat, Alicia clinging to him like an accessory. The moment I pushed the door open, the whole room fell silent for a second. In the corner, Christopher was there too. He sat in the shadows, long fingers playing with a lighter, the flame flickering on and off. When he saw me, his movement paused for a moment. I ignored him and walked straight to a seat as far away from Jeremy as possible. The dishes were served. A plate of crayfish sat right in the center of the table. Alicia suddenly spoke in a soft, cutesy voice. Oh wow, this looks so good, but peeling it is such a hassle. It'll ruin my nails. As she spoke, she cast an expectant glance at Jeremy. Jeremy was busy drinking with others and casually said, Jessica, help Alicia peel them. You're fast at it. In the past, as long as Jeremy was around, peeling crayfish had always been my job. For his sake, I had even perfected the skill of peeling them quickly. Everyone looked at me like it was the most natural thing in the world. Even Alicia pushed the plate slightly toward me, smiling innocently. Then I'll leave it to you, Jessica. I didn't move. I swirled the wine glass in my hand, staring at the bright red shells, suddenly feeling a bit nauseous. Jessica. Jeremy frowned and urged. What are you waiting for? I'm not peeling them. I set down the glass, the sound of it hitting the marble table crisp and sharp. I'm not a waitress. If you want to eat, peel it yourself. If you don't have hands, then don't eat. The whole room erupted in shock. Jeremy couldn't keep up appearances anymore. Jessica, what the hell is wrong with you? It's just a small thing. Do you really have to ruin everyone's mood? A small thing? I stood up, looking at him with a faint smile. If it's so small, why don't you peel them for her? What? Are your hands broken too? Jeremy was just about to lose his temper, when suddenly, a sharp clack sounded from the corner. The lighter was tossed onto the table. Christopher lazily straightened up, his long legs carrying him over in just a few steps. He didn't even look at Jeremy. He picked up the plate of crayfish directly, and under everyone's stunned gaze, he dumped the entire plate, crayfish and all, straight into the trash can. Crash! Oil splashed everywhere. If no one's peeling them, then no one eats. He pulled out a napkin to wipe his hands, his dark gaze sweeping across the room. Too damn noisy. The bullet comments exploded. Holy shit. That was badass. Ultimate wife protector mode activated. Did I lose my memory? Why does the male lead feel so weak now, while the villain is way more captivating? Jeremy's face flushed red with anger. Christopher. What the hell do you mean? Meaning, Christopher tossed the oil-stained napkin straight into Jeremy's arms. I've found you irritating for a long time. Chapter 8. No one in the room dared to speak. Jeremy stood there stunned for a long moment before fixing his gaze on Christopher. So, you don't want to be friends anymore, is that it? Christopher, you've been going against me again and again these past few days. Don't tell me you actually like Jessica. Christopher curled his lips into a smile, but his eyes flickered slightly. That's none of your business. The bullet comments drifted above. None of his business? Oh, please. It has everything to do with him. Christopher only became friends with the male lead because of the female supporting role. Ha ha ha. Jeremy really is clueless, as he never thought about why Christopher was always distant with him, but suddenly became friends in high school? Because he saw the female supporting role. He didn't know how to approach her, so he took the long route. Too bad he held back too much. Maybe he was afraid that once he let his feelings loose, he'd lose control completely. Reading those words, I froze, staring at Christopher, who looked as indifferent as ever. Could it be that he really? Sensing the tension, Alicia quickly stood up to smooth things over. Come on, Jeremy. You said it yourself. Christopher's just straightforward. Don't be upset. After her repeated coaxing, Jeremy's expression softened slightly. The room gradually filled with chatter again, the atmosphere warming back up. After a few rounds of drinks, Alicia suggested playing a game. The most cliché one, truth or dare. After several rounds, the bottle pointed at me. Alicia's eyes flashed with calculation. Jessica, pick dare, okay? Truth is so boring. I looked at her with a half smile. Sure. Then, Alicia pretended to think, her gaze sweeping across the room. It lingered on Jeremy for a moment before quickly shifting away. Pick someone of the opposite sex here and give them a French kiss for 1 minute. The room instantly erupted in cheers and teasing. Everyone knew I liked Jeremy. Alicia was betting that I wouldn't dare to kiss Jeremy, or that even if I did, he would push me away, making me humiliate myself in front of everyone. After all, Jeremy had just been defending her. Jeremy frowned. That's too much. Pick something else. What? Can't handle it? Alicia pouted playfully. Jessica hasn't even said anything. All eyes were on me, waiting for a show. I picked up my glass and drained it in one go. The alcohol burned my throat, and my courage surged with it. The bullet comments flooded in. Kiss the villain. Kiss him to death. Jessica, don't chicken out. Go for it. I stood up. My high heels sank slightly into the soft carpet, making me sway a little. I walked past Jeremy, who was still putting on an act, and headed straight toward Christopher in the corner. Chapter 9. Christopher clearly hadn't expected me to choose him. He froze on the sofa. Those eyes that always carried a hint of mockery were now slightly widened, reflecting my figure. Christopher. I called his name. His Adam's apple bobbed violently, his voice hoarse beyond recognition. Jessica, don't mess with me. I'm not. I bent down, placing both hands on the back of the sofa on either side of him, caging him within my space. Then I lowered my head and kissed those thin lips. Cool. With a faint taste of tobacco, the room fell into a terrifying silence. Christopher's entire body stiffened like stone. Just when I thought he was about to push me away, a large hand suddenly pressed against the back of my head, taking control. This kiss was nothing like my brief touch just now. It carried years of suppressed longing and restraint. He pried open my lips, sweeping through every inch of my breath, as if he wanted to swallow me whole, airless, suffocating. Clink. A sharp sound rang out. The glass in Jeremy's hand fell to the ground, shattering into pieces. Red wine splashed everywhere. Christopher didn't stop. He even deliberately bit my tongue the moment Jeremy looked over. Only when I was almost out of breath did he finally let me go. His forehead pressed against mine. The corners of his eyes flushed red. Is that enough? Before I could answer, Jeremy charged over like a raging bull. Jessica, do you have no shame? He reached out to grab me, but Christopher blocked him. Get lost. This is between me and her. Jeremy's eyes were frighteningly red. Jessica, if you're putting on a show for me, at least have some limits. A show? I laughed so hard my eyes nearly watered. Over Christopher's shoulder, I looked at Jeremy's furious face. Jeremy, when you were in bed comforting Alicia yesterday, was that a show too? Dead silence filled the room. Jeremy's face turned pale, his lips trembling without words. Christopher said nothing more. He took off his coat and draped it over me. It carried the scent of cedar and his warmth. Let's go. He wrapped an arm around my waist and led me out forcefully. As they passed Jeremy, their eyes met. Christopher expressionless, Jeremy on the verge of exploding. Chapter 10. After getting into the car, an odd, tense silence filled the air. Christopher didn't start the engine. His hand rested on the steering wheel, his knuckles tightening. Done using me? He suddenly spoke, his voice cold enough to freeze. I turned to look at him. The streetlights outside cast a dim yellow glow across his face, flickering in and out. What? That kiss. He turned his head to look at me. You really went all out just to piss Jeremy off. The bullet comments rushed by urgently. He's feeling insecure. OMG. The villain thinks you were just using him as a tool. He's both happy and hurt. Hurry and comfort him. Jessica. Christopher looks like he's about to fall apart. I opened my mouth, wanting to explain, but found no way to start. How could I possibly say that I could see the bullet comments? That I knew he had feelings for me? What if I said, I wasn't using you? I cautiously reached out, hooking my finger around his. Christopher jerked his hand back as if electrocuted. Jessica. He closed his eyes briefly, his voice rough. Don't provoke me. I don't have as much patience as you think. The engine roared to life. The tires screeched against the ground as the car sped off. Neither of us spoke along the way. I felt like I should say something, yet couldn't find the right words. The car stopped at the entrance of my school. Get out. Christopher didn't look at me, his brows tightly furrowed as if sulking. Christopher. I said get out. He turned his head after speaking, suddenly gritting his teeth as he spoke harshly. Jessica, do you even know what that kiss meant to me? For you to just grab someone and kiss them to piss him off. Today it was me. Who will it be next time? His Adam's apple moved sharply. In your eyes, am I really that cheap? Chapter 11. The bullet comments crowded densely across my vision. He's trembling. Christopher is really breaking down. Jessica. Say something. He thinks you're just throwing him scraps. If the person you've loved in secret for 5 years treats you like a tool, anyone would collapse. Christopher. I unfastened my seatbelt and turned toward him. He instinctively leaned back, his spine pressing against the car door. There was nowhere left to retreat. That kiss wasn't random. I looked straight at him. I chose you because you're the one I wanted to kiss. His pupils shrank violently, his breathing halting for a moment. Then an even lower, hoarser voice forced its way out of his throat. Do you even know what you're saying? I reached out, my fingertips brushing the redness at the corner of his eyes. He flinched as if startled, turning his head away. Yet he couldn't help but lean back in, rubbing lightly against my palm, like a stubborn stray cat, craving affection but unwilling to admit it. The bullet comments went insane. Is this really the villain? This is a puppy. I'm melting. Mutual feelings. This is mutual love. Jeremy, open your eyes and see what real love looks like. My phone suddenly started vibrating nonstop. Jeremy's name flashed across the screen. I declined the call. He called again. I declined again. The 4th time. I just turned my phone off. Christopher watched my actions, his gaze darkening slightly. Not picking up? No need. I tossed my phone into my bag, feeling a bit irritated. If he's calling me, it's just to ask why I embarrassed him. He'll never ask whether I'm upset. Christopher fell silent for a moment. Then, In a low voice, he said, "Fine, then I'll make sure you're happy from now on. Happy every day." Chapter 12. After that day, Christopher started appearing around me with absurd frequency. I was in the farthest corner of the library, preparing for my English exam. I had barely sat down for 2 minutes when the chair across from me was pulled out. A book was dropped onto the table. Christopher, dressed in a black hoodie with the hood up, sat down, only his pale jawline visible. He just sat there, not reading, not looking at me, just playing games on his phone. The bullet comments floated by. Clumsy little puppy, only knows how to keep her company to make her happy. Ha ha ha. Cut him some slack, he's been single for over 20 years. Of course he has no experience. Jessica, give Christopher a little sweetness, he's ridiculously easy to satisfy. I glanced at him a few times, then pushed my strawberry milk toward him, lightly nudging his elbow. Christopher's hand trembled, and his game character died instantly. He took off his earphones and looked at me. "What?" "For you." I pointed at the milk. He stared at the pink carton for 2 seconds, then turned his head away with feigned disdain. "I don't drink sweet stuff." 5 minutes later, out of the corner of my eye, I saw Christopher biting on the straw, finishing the entire carton of strawberry milk. He even crushed the empty box and tucked it into his pocket. Chapter 13. In the afternoon, the department held a friendly basketball match. The court was bursting with hormones. Jeremy used to be a key player on the school team, and he performed brilliantly on the court. Today, whether it was to show off in front of Alicia or something else, he played especially aggressively. Several times, he deliberately drove the ball straight into Christopher. Christopher ignored him, focusing only on the game, occasionally glancing in my direction. The score stayed tied the whole time. I gradually got bored and lowered my head to play with my phone. I didn't know how much time had passed when a sudden cry came from beside me. "Watch out!" I looked up and saw a ball flying straight toward me out of control. I froze, forgetting to dodge. A dark figure suddenly lunged forward. Bang! Christopher took the hit with his back, the force knocking both of us to the ground. His hand cushioned the back of my head. He let out a muffled groan, his brows tightly furrowed. "Christopher!" I panicked, trying to help him up. "Are you okay?" His face was a little pale as he gritted his teeth. "Are you stupid? Don't you know how to dodge?" I hurriedly helped him to the infirmary. The school doctor wasn't there. I asked him to take off his shirt, revealing his well-built back. A large patch of bruising stood out starkly against his pale skin. My hands trembled as I held the medicated oil. "Does it hurt?" "What do you think?" He lay face down on the bed, his face buried in the pillow, voice muffled. "Be gentle." Trying to kill me? I could only lighten my touch. My fingertips, coated with the oil, moved in slow circles across his back. The atmosphere started to shift. There were only the two of us in the infirmary, so quiet that even our breathing was audible. The bullet comments began turning suggestive again. "Those back muscles, damn. That must feel amazing to touch. Lower! Go lower!" My gaze drifted downward uncontrollably. The waistband of his sweatpants rested low on his hips. With each breath, I could faintly see the lines of his V-cut disappearing below. I suddenly remembered that size 20 comment, and my face grew hot. "Where are you looking?" My wrist was suddenly grabbed. Christopher had turned his head at some point, staring at me with a half smile, his gaze teasing. "Still want to verify it?" I jerked my hand back like a startled cat. Who wants to? You don't? He flipped over and sat up, closing in on me, the scent of the medicated oil mixed with the heat from his body, making my head spin. "You don't. Yet you were staring so hard." "Jessica, are you checking me out?" Chapter 14. The ambiguous tension was broken by hurried footsteps. Jeremy rushed into the infirmary. Seeing how close we were, his eyes slowly turned red. "Jessica." He paused for a long time before speaking, his voice hoarse. "We need to talk." Christopher's expression turned cold, but he said nothing, just looked at me. I wanted to see what Jeremy was going to do this time. As I got up to leave, Christopher's fingers twitched, then clenched tightly. At the end of the hallway, Jeremy spoke urgently. "Jessica, can you stop being stubborn? There's really nothing between me and Alicia." That night, It was her birthday. She drank too much and insisted on going to my place. I couldn't refuse. Jeremy, I cut him off. I don't need your explanations anymore. He froze, his Adam's apple moving, before finally speaking after a long pause. Jessica, I know you're angry. I messed up. I shouldn't have neglected you. But you can't just go and mess around with Christopher because of that. I laughed. Who are you to tell me who I can or can't get involved with? He's my best friend. Jeremy shouted. The woman I like getting close to my best friend. How do you expect me to accept that? I looked at him and suddenly felt it was absurd. I had chased after him for 6 years, and he never once looked back. Now that I finally stopped, he was asking why I didn't wait for him. Jeremy, I said, I don't like tiramisu anymore. What? I only liked it before because you liked the coffee at that cafe. So you always dragged me there. You'd order an Americano and Black Forest cake, and I'd order tiramisu. His face gradually turned pale. I stopped liking tiramisu a long time ago. Just as I finished speaking, footsteps came from behind. Christopher walked straight to my side. Done talking? He didn't look at Jeremy, lowering his head to ask me, "Let's go eat." Jeremy's face turned ashen. Christopher, what the hell are you trying to do? Only then did Christopher lift his eyes, looking at him lazily. What am I trying to do? He curled his lips. I'm trying to pursue her. Isn't that obvious? Chapter 15. Jeremy charged forward, ready to throw a punch. Christopher didn't dodge. The fist grazed his cheekbone, leaving a red mark. He only tilted his head slightly, his expression unchanged. Feel better? Jeremy was breathing heavily. Christopher, do you even understand what I'm saying? Jessica, what about her? Christopher's gaze turned cold. What is she to you? Your girlfriend? Your fiancé? Have you ever said it out loud? Jeremy was left speechless. Since she's not, Christopher said, each word deliberate. Then it's fair competition. The bullet comments exploded. Christopher is absolutely going off. Fair competition. Ha ha ha, Jeremy. What do you even have to compete with him? I, the villain, am about to show you what a real regret arc looks like. Jeremy looked at me with reddened eyes. Jessica, is that what you think too? I didn't answer, which was answer enough. Christopher's tense jawline relaxed slightly. He took my hand and led me toward the other end of the hallway. Jeremy stood there, frozen like a statue. Chapter 16. What do you want to eat? After getting into the car, Christopher tapped the steering wheel and glanced at me. I thought for a moment. Crayfish? Sure. He started the engine. Let's order delivery and eat at my place. You're peeling them for me? Yeah, he answered naturally. Wow. I've never been treated like that before, I said with a sigh. Christopher's hands paused slightly, his gaze darkening. After a moment, he let out a cold snort. Heh, guess you were too busy taking care of that jerk before. Huh? The bullet comments popped up. He's jealous. He's definitely jealous. Christopher probably wants to twist Jeremy's head off and use it as a ball. Ha ha ha. Jealousy trope is the best. Turn up the heat. I want premium content. Go comfort him. He's so pitiful. In the original story, he got hurt by Jeremy before he even confessed and left the country. Without her, he buried himself in work, fought Jeremy everywhere, and ended up ruining his health at a young age. My heart tightened as I stared at Christopher's sulking profile. So handsome, and somehow, a little heartbreaking. Christopher brought me back to his apartment, his expression still grim. His back radiated a low-pressure aura that practically said I'm in a terrible mood right now. Christopher. I called his name. He paused but didn't turn around, his voice low. Don't call me. I might not be able to stop myself from snapping at you, but I want to kiss you. Christopher turned around abruptly. He crossed the distance in a few steps, dropping to one knee in front of me. Both hands braced against the edge of the sofa, trapping me within his arms. The corners of his eyes were red, like a wolf pushed to its limits. Jessica, think carefully. His breath was scorching as it brushed against my neck. This isn't truth or dare, and I won't stop this time. The bullet comments went wild. Kiss him! Hold her head and make it happen. That look, Christopher is about to devour her. It's happening! It's finally happening! Grandma. The ship you've been rooting for is sailing. I looked at Christopher, then reached up, hooking my arms around his neck. I've thought it through. Christopher. I don't like Jeremy anymore. I like you. Chapter 17. The last few words seemed to flip a switch. Christopher's Adam's apple rolled hard. The next second, a storm of kisses fell upon me. This kiss carried a sense of devotion, yet was mixed with uncontrollable possessiveness. He bit down on my lips, murmuring indistinctly, "Even if you're lying, I'll accept it. Jessica, don't even think about running away from me in this lifetime." The bedroom lighting was dim and intimate. Christopher pressed me onto the black silk bed, his dark hair disheveled. Sweat slid down the sharp line of his jaw, dripping onto my collarbone. Scalding hot. Focus. Sensing my distraction, he pinched my waist in punishment. Ow. His voice was hoarse, his movements growing more forceful. "Weren't you pretty bold in the infirmary? Now you're scared?" Through my blurred vision, I saw a massive bullet comment floating above the bed. What is this that my VIP eyes aren't allowed to see? Why is everything censored? Even through the blur, you can tell Christopher is seriously a 20. My face burned red as I buried it into the pillow. It was true, maybe even more than that. Christopher mistook it for shyness and let out a low chuckle. His kisses trailed down my back, moving lower. "Jessica, look at me." He forced me to turn my head, making me meet his gaze. Those usually cold, brooding eyes were now filled with overwhelming tenderness. "Say my name." "Christopher." "Good. I like you." Overwhelmed with emotion, I forced out broken words. Christopher pulled me tightly into his arms, his voice firm against my ear, each word clear. "I love you." Chapter 18. Jeremy found me a week later. He had lost a lot of weight, his eye sockets sunken, stubble covering his jaw. "Jessica." He blocked me outside my apartment building, his voice dry and hoarse. "Are you really going to be with him?" I didn't answer. He stepped closer. "Christopher isn't a good person. He's calculating, scheming. You won't be able to handle him. He approached you with a plan from the very beginning." "Enough." I cut him off. "Jeremy, don't you understand yet?" I looked straight into his eyes. Whether he's calculating or scheming, at least every step he took was to get closer to me. "And you?" "Every step you took was pushing me away." His face turned pale. His lips trembled, unable to form a single word. "You always said Alicia needed you more, but you never once asked whether I needed you." His eyes reddened. "Jessica, that night, I entered the wrong password 3 times and stood outside your door." I looked at him. "Do you know what I was thinking?" I realized that when disappointment reaches its limit, you can't even cry anymore. The evening wind rushed through the hallway, making my dress flutter wildly. Jeremy stood there, as if all strength had been drained from him. I turned and pressed the elevator button. Behind me, his hoarse voice sounded again. "He still owes me something." I paused. "He owes me an explanation." Jeremy lifted his head, his eyes red. 5 years ago, he came to me first, saying he wanted to be friends. I never understood why someone like him, who always kept to himself, would suddenly get close to me. He let out a self-mocking laugh. "Now I understand. He never saw me as a friend. He was just waiting for me to lose you." The elevator doors opened, and I stepped inside. Just before they closed, I looked at Jeremy. "Then you should be grateful. He got what he was waiting for." Chapter 19. A month later, it was Lunar New Year. While sorting through old belongings at home, I found a high school yearbook. Its cover was covered in dust, the corners curled with age. I flipped through it casually, page after page filled with youthful handwriting and well wishes. When I reached the last page, I paused. There was no signature on this page, only a single line of writing, sharp strokes pressed deep into the paper. "Jessica, I like you." Written in June, 3 years ago. Fireworks exploded outside the window. I stared at that line for a long time, unmoving. My phone screen lit up. It was a message from Christopher. "Happy New Year, Jessica." I didn't reply. I held on to that page, my fingers tightening bit by bit. So back then, Christopher had been brave too. He had written his feelings into my yearbook and tucked it into the last page. It was just that I had never turned to it. The bullet comments were quiet for a long time. Then they slowly began to appear again. He finally waited long enough. The ultimate hopeless romantic wins at last. Jessica, open the door, your man is outside. He drove 12 hours just to see her. Just to personally say Happy New Year. Will I ever get a love like this before I die? I froze for a moment, then quickly put on my coat and rushed to open the door. Christopher stood in the hallway, hearing the sound. He looked up. When he saw me, he paused for a second. Then he smiled and walked toward me. Happy New Year, girlfriend. Chapter 20. I bit my lip and handed him the yearbook page. He lowered his head. The moment he saw that line, he froze completely. The hallway light fell across his profile, casting long shadows from his eyelashes. Christopher didn't speak for a long time. So long that doors opened and closed upstairs. So long that the motion sensor light flickered off and on again. He finally looked up. The corners of his eyes faintly red. Teasing lightly, Jessica, you finally saw it. He clenched that page in his hand, forcing a small smile. I thought you'd never see it in this lifetime. I stood on my toes and kissed him, tasting the salt of my tears. Christopher pulled me tightly into his arms and said something, amid the deafening sound of fireworks. I heard him clearly. Jessica, I like you. Chapter Extra Christopher's POV. 2021-09-01. The wind blew in through the window, her ponytail brushing across my desk. I pretended to look down for an eraser. Didn't find one. I actually had it with me. 2021-09-15. I learned her name, Jessica. I rolled it over my tongue 3 times, but couldn't bring myself to say it out loud. 2021-10-08. The way she sneezes is cute. Like a cat. If only I could raise one with her someday. 2022-04-19. Someone tried to bully her. I told Jeremy to take her away, while I was tangled up fighting those guys. I saw her being led away under his protection. As long as she wasn't hurt, that was enough. Even if, in her eyes, I was just a delinquent who didn't study and loved to fight. 2022-06-24. She went to see him off. I saw her off. She didn't know. 2022-09-17. She really likes him. I ran 30 laps on the track, then lay on the ground staring at the stars. There were so many stars. Not a single one was shining for me. 2024-03-12. I rented the place across from that guy. The movers made small talk, asked me why I chose this place. I said the lighting was good. 2025-01-18. She rang my doorbell. The moment the door opened, I saw tears in her eyes. At that moment, I thought, I'm not letting her go. 2025-01-27. Jessica, I want to become something that belongs to you. 2025-05-20. She said she wanted the soup dumplings from that place in the west side of the city. I lined up at 5 in the morning. When I brought them back, she took one bite. Not as good as yours. I froze. The ones you made last time, even though they were burnt, they tasted better than these. The plane tree leaves rustled loudly outside the window. I could hear my own heartbeat, louder than when I finished those 30 laps at 17. 2025-08-09. She fell asleep on my lap. The TV was playing some boring variety show. No one was watching it. Her eyelashes were long, occasionally trembling in her sleep. I reached out and lightly touched them. She didn't wake up. The air conditioner was a bit too cold. I pulled the blanket up a little. She turned over, burying her face against my lower abdomen, letting out a soft murmur. I didn't move. The people on TV were laughing. The audience was laughing too. I didn't dare to laugh. I was afraid of waking this moment. 2025-12-31. New Year's Eve. Fireworks outside. She stood by the window, her profile flickering in the light. I wrapped my arms around her from behind. Happy New Year, Jessica. She turned back, her eyes bright. Christopher. Yeah, let's spend next year together too. I rested my chin on top of her head. Fireworks exploded outside the window. That early summer years ago, she picked up the pen I dropped. When she handed it to me, Her fingertips brushed against my palm. In that moment, fireworks exploded too. They kept exploding for 5 years. She didn't know. Now she does.